going on, guys? Nick Lessigore here, Exit 12 Brewery, in the house on a brew day. I'm just going to get right to it because I find that I ramble. So, today we're going to be testing the limits of the Robobrew a little bit, as we're going for a 8% Double IPA, 73% mash efficiency, and I think that might be tough because we are adding some flaked oats and things like that because it's a New England IPA. So let's get into the grain bill and the hops and the yeast. This is an experimental beer for us because we don't brew very many high ABV beers, but we've been brewing a lot lately. I've been brewing probably once every 2 weeks, and that's a good thing. It means that I'm continuing to keep fresh beer on tap, and I'm turning it over quickly. So that's a good thing. 7 pounds of 2-row, and we went a little bit different. Usually we go 50-50 on 2-row and Golden Promise, but instead I went 7 pounds of 2-row, 3 pounds, 12 ounces of Golden Promise. We're doing a pound of flaked oats, a pound of oat malt from Valley Malt, which is local to us, so still getting some nice creaminess to it. A lot of people would say that the flaked oats is low for a pound, but we're adding the oat malt too, which should give it some head retention, and it should add to the creaminess aspect. And then we're adding 4 ounces of acidulated malt to get the pH where we want it, which is right around 5.4, and 4 ounces of honey malt because we want to get a little bit of sweetness to add to that Golden Promise and to play with the hops. And then in some aspects, this is kind of a pantry IPA in that we're adding interesting amounts of hops because it's just what we had left on hand, and we want to replenish our supply eventually to get some newer hops in. Some of the hops are as old as 2 years old, so we've been storing them correctly. We've been vacuum sealing them, putting them in the freezer, so that should not be too much of a problem. But what we want to do is get rid of the older hops so that we can buy some newer ones. We just got a pound of 2019 Galaxy, which was on sale at Yakima Valley. So we're going in with an ounce of Centennial at 60 minutes, which is a lot more than what we normally do for our New England IPAs, but this one is kind of along my end. It's Brandon and I more so. It's a collaboration because I would not usually add hops that early in the boil, but we do want to get some nice bitterness on this, mainly because it's a double IPA and you don't want it to just taste like hop water. We're going to do an ounce of Amarillo at 5 minutes, and then we're going to be whirlpooling. We're going in with 1.2 ounces of Citra, and then another ounce of Amarillo, and that is it for the whirlpool. And then 0.85 ounces of Citra, 2 different Citras, the same, 2 different years, different alpha acid contents. So it's essentially 2 ounces of Citra, 1 ounce of Amarillo. And then for the dry hop, we have quite a few hops that we're dry hopping with, the most that I think we've ever done. 1.9 ounces of Galaxy, which clears us out of our 2018 Galaxy. 1.59 ounces of Mosaic, 1.50 ounces of Amarillo, and 1.5 ounces of Centennial. Yeah, a lot of hops there. You're probably looking at, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 probably ounces of hops or so. So that's a lot. But you know, this is really a test beer more than anything else, and something that we're really excited to see how it comes out. I'm also going to be showing my mash a little bit differently than I normally do because I want to see, and I want you guys to see how well the Robobrew can handle a bigger malt bill. Because again, this is something that we generally, and for Robobrew users that are watching, this will be great for you if you're only brewing pale ales and IPAs. We really want to go for a double and try to get that efficiency up high and get as much sugar as we can out of the grain. So we'll be mashing in at 1.7 quarts per pound, which is our normal. You know, we find that our efficiency took a bump when we did that because we were mashing in quite low before. So the past 6 months to a year or so, we've been doing 1.7 quarts a pound, and that's really helped us out in terms of our efficiency. We're hoping that we don't have to add or remove any water as we're mashing in. We hope that the level's not too high. So this is a test for us, so you guys will be coming along with us. So it'll be interesting to say the least. So one thing we did do is that I'll leave the link in the description, but we utilize a mash calculator from Green Bay Rackers. It's a homebrew club, I think I would assume in Wisconsin, because it's Green Bay. I've never met them. I don't know anybody. I just did a Google search, so I don't know anybody in the club or anything, but they have a mash calculator that we utilized for our cooler system back when we were mashing with the cooler, which I'll be breaking out at some point here during the summer to do a stout. But the mash calculator is great because you put in the amount of grains and then you put in the quart to pound ratio that you want to mash in at, and it spits out a number, and that tells you how much space you need in the Robobrew. So the number it spit out to us was 7 gallons. So we need 7 gallons of space in the Robobrew. That should be plenty. That's 26 quarts, I think, or liters rather. That's 26 liters. And the Robobrew is a 30-liter vessel. So I don't suspect we'll have issues with space, but we'll see. Let's see how accurate this calculator is. And now let's mash in. Let's mash in. I will be putting the grain in slowly. I'm not as much concerned with the amount of time it takes to mash in as I am with the idea that we want to get the entire grain bill. We want to get all the grain in the Robobrew, and I want to avoid dough balls. I have the overflow pipe present because I know at some point I'm going to have to turn it on, and we will turn that down to get extra, to get water on the bottom moving so that it'll help loosen up the mash. So here we go. You know, we prefer to mash in at 1.7 quarts a pound. We find that we get great flow on the recirculation arm, and our efficiency has taken a bump since we've done that. Starting to thicken up just a little bit. You know, a lot of people, when they're utilizing a lot of grain, they'll turn down that ratio. Some people even as low as 1 1/4 quarts, which is what we used to do. But we found, and I think a lot of people find, that you take a hit in efficiency when you do that. This is turning out so far better than I thought it would. We have plenty of space, but I suspect with the more grain we add, that will change. The level is rising. We have our overflow pipe in the middle here it's getting pretty high, the level. I suspect the level when we really start utilizing the recirc pump, when we turn that on, that it'll go significantly higher than the overflow arm. So I'm really just gonna have to watch the mash throughout the process to make sure that we don't go over these 2 holes on the left and right where I put the metal arm to pick up the malt pipe. But I think the key to mashing when you're utilizing the Robobrew and a big grain bill is take your time mashing in. You want to avoid dough balls, You want to keep efficiency as high as you can, and the best way to do that is to mix in the grain as efficiently as possible, no matter how long it takes. Mash is still relatively thin, which I'm very surprised about. And it's starting to get a little bit thicker. What I'm really surprised about is that I haven't had to utilize the recirculation arm yet. As you can see, the mash is thickening up a little bit. And that is the last of it. I probably should have split that up into two, but I liked where we were in terms of the mash thickness. And yeah, that actually mixed in quite easily. I'm actually shocked that I didn't have to turn on the recirculation arm, because even at 1.7 quarts per pound on pale ales, we find that we have to turn the recirc arm on, and we are probably using, in theory, you're using less water because your ABV is not as high, but this is nice and thick. I'm gonna give this 10 minutes to settle, but first I'm gonna take the recirc arm and move it around to get that excess grain out, off of the sides anyway. So I'm going to put a 10-minute timer on this. I've stopped the pump. I'm going to let the grain bed settle, and then I will start the 60-minute timer. All right, 10-minute rest calculator, or timer rather, just went off. Looks like, can't really see a lot over the phone there, but it looks like it's settled decently. So we are going to turn on the pump. Let's see. I'm going to turn it down. That should be good for now. So we'll come back to this. So we're 30 minutes in just about on the mash. I just turned the pump up because filtering is going really well. As a reminder, there are 0 rice hulls in this beer. I was a little concerned about temp dropping down, but we're good. We're right at 150. That happened about 7 minutes in. It took 7 minutes for it to drop 10 degrees or so. And we are on our way. Really interested to see what first runnings and what the pre-boil is on this. Right at 5.29, 5.3 for mash pH. I wanted to get it to 5.4, but I'm not going to push it. We're well into the mash at this point. And I probably could add some baking soda to bump it up a little bit. I added a half a teaspoon because we're at 5. I'm not sure how we got that low, but then again, this red screen keeps coming up on the pH meter. I looked it up and I couldn't find a whole lot as to why the red screen was coming up and how to get rid of it. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm all ears. So as you can see, you can't see the center malt pipe, but I knew that would happen. The center pipe rather, the overflow pipe, because we do have a lot of water and a lot of grain, but 0 rice hulls. I turned the pump up again, and it is just filtering so well, and I'm so surprised. Without rice hulls, which we haven't been using for some time, but with the added amount of grain, I'm just very surprised that it's filtering so well. All right, we just finished mashing out. Gonna pause. We'll keep the heating elements on, but now we're gonna pull up the malt pipe and start sparging. The mash overall went really well. I'm really impressed with the way it filtered with no rice hulls and just about 2 pounds of flaked adjuncts with a 13-pound grain bill. I was expecting some issues, but I really didn't get any. So here's to hoping the rest of the brew day goes well. And as you can hear, the filtering is very good. All right, it looks like we're at boil. I added in 1 ounce of Centennial. I didn't show it because the boil came up pretty quick on me. I was taking notes, not really paying attention. I looked over and it was boiling, so we like to try to get things as exact as we can. It's a pretty nice roll and boil. I took a sample, put it in the freezer to cool right before I added the Centennial. And as you can see, we're at boiling. So moving on with the process, and we're going to take a much anticipated pre-boil gravity. We hit our yield and we had more than half a gallon left over. 0.64 gallons of sparge water were left over, which means we sparged with 2.99 gallons, so right under 3, and we got 4.68 gallons of first runnings. So we only lost a gallon in the mash. So just some quick numbers for you, and just to give you an idea where we're at. I don't know if you can see that or not. Looks like 0.63 for the pre-boil gravity. At 73% efficiency, B.R. Smith had us at 0.54 approximately. So our efficiency is through the roof, which is great because we really want this to be a double IPA. So as you can see, with the hydrometer calibrated, we're at 0.57. This is about 30 minutes in. So I assume that we're probably in that 0.54, 0.53 range for pre-boil. All right, so we killed the heat. End of the boil, we're going to bring this down to 155 and then we're going to whirlpool. We're at 150 pretty much. There's a whirlpool arm. And there are the hops. We're going to whirlpool for 10 minutes at 150. All right, we've hit 80 degrees. It's time to transfer to the fermenter. Taking a peek, we have just over 21 liters. That's about a little more than 5.5 gallons. So looking good on the yield. That was pretty spot on. We were looking to get 5.5, so there we go. Okay, so because the yeast was 3 years old, I think, 2018, of December, we utilized and made up a 1.5 liter starter, and that's supposed to get us the amount of cells that we need in order for this thing to ferment. But what I did was I decanted 1/2 liter, about, maybe a little bit less, so that we're not putting in so much liquid. So we don't want any characteristics of the starter to take over the beer at all. Got that tip from main brew guy Gary. What's up, buddy? All right, let's pitch. Here we go, time to pitch. As you can see, no yeasties on the bottom. Swirled it up so that we got everything. And we are good. I'm going to call this Double IPA Brew Day a wrap. Alright guys, here we are. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Here it is. The Double IPA. So as you saw in the video, we had more than enough space to mash. So the good news is, on that level, we probably could have added another pound of grain. So that was nice. Additionally, we got up to 7.6% on this, which just barely hits that double IPA range according to the BJCP. So the plan is for the next double IPA we brew to add in at least another pound or so of grain to really bump us up in that probably 8% range or so. But for now, this thing is fully carved, as you can see, and it is dank looking. You cannot see my finger through that at all. I did let this cold crash for like 3 days, which is not normal comparative to what we usually cold crash. It's usually a day, 2 days at the most. So I was a little nervous that this was gonna come out less hazy than I wanted, but this is my ideal color and look for New England IPA. A little bit of lacing there on the glass. Let's grab a nose on this. Yeah, so this nose, at first, Brandon came over for a short time last week and dropped off some stuff, and we got to chatting. I was actually transferring this beer, and we got a sample of it before it went into the keg, and the beer smelled phenolic. I'm happy to report that has fallen out of this beer. Really get a nice peach, really nice mango on there. But it definitely has that sweetness that you can kind of feel off of the back end of the nose. I'll be honest, I've had at least 2 sips of this, but this is the first pull off of the keg. I've had 2 sips because I set up the camera and apparently it died. So I had to grab the charger, and I didn't think the charger would fit in terms of the length of the cord to do this video, but I'm glad it does. So now we're doing the video. But I think it's time. Enough talking. Let's grab a sip. Oh, cheers. And again, happy Homebrew Wednesday. Yeah. That's nice. First thing, it's very sweet. Had to add more malt, obviously, to get the ABV up, so it's very sweet. It does have an alcoholic end hit, just a little bit on the back end, but again, it's a double IPA, it's 7.6%. It's been a while since we've made a beer with this strength, but you definitely get the peach aspect, a slight hint of pineapple as well. The mouthfeel is out of bounds. The mouthfeel, it really coats the mouth well. I'm happy with the water profile I did on this. And I can, if you reach out, I can give you more information on that. But the hops really shine through nicely. Yeah. Really nice sweetness. If you really dig deep, you can get, some grapefruit pith. It's definitely borders between tropical and citrus, which I find to be really nice. No real orange, but you definitely get the grapefruit. You definitely get maybe a tangelo. I think it's got the sweetness of a tangelo, which could also be the malt bill, as I mentioned. And it sits on the palate for a little bit. Again, it's a double IPA. It kind of should do that, right? It shouldn't wash off the palate quickly. Yeah, this is nice. It's a little green, obviously, just pulled it. We added 11, I think a little over 11 and a quarter ounces of hops in this, which is a little bit more than what we usually add for our Sam New England IPA. But for the double, I think that this is a great beer, and this is not a beer that you can pound, even though I'm already down half the glass. This is not a beer that you can pound. This is definitely a nice beer that you can just sit back, on the deck while you're grilling and just hang out and have a beer when the sun's coming down. This is a really nice beer. So the 3-year-old Tropical IPA Yeast, or 2.5 years old, it did its job. It definitely did its job nicely, and the beer is looking awesome, as you can see. So until next time, thanks everyone for watching, everyone in the club. Hopefully we'll have a get together soon on Zoom, and cheers.